Good evening, everyone out there in train world. Hope you are enjoying your evening and getting some modeling done. And it's time for another Train Tuesday. So we're going to do what we always do. We'll go ahead and get started and see who is joining us tonight. Let's see who's out there in virtual train world. We've got Ethan, Amy, Anessa, Tyler, Eric, Keegan, Late Night Model Railroads coming in from New York. Tyler, and let's see, a lot of Tylers tonight. We've got Ronald, Ron, Motor City Trains, the Pandanator, DG Model Works, Are You a Train Man Too, and MTG Squad. So it looks like we've got a pretty good crowd here tonight. Wanted to welcome you to Train Tuesday, as you are probably streaming this from your phone, your device, in your workshop, at your layout. We're going to talk a little bit about some ready-to-roll containers tonight, and we're also going to talk about some modelers picks that we got over the past week, and we're going to talk a little bit about whatever's on your mind. We'll take a few questions at the end of the show, like we always do. So let's do a few more shout-outs. And let's see who else is joining us out there. We've got Tim from Kansas, Donnie from St. Louis, Richard from Colorado. We've got Paul, Mark, Nick from Vegas, but he's actually from Twin Falls, Idaho. We've got Robert, Bradley, Andrew, Cody, Stephen, Wolfgang, Keegan, Motor City Trains is there again, and Jeff, just to name a few. So welcome aboard, everybody. I'm glad to have you here tonight as we talk about Athearn trains, and tonight specifically ready to roll 53-foot containers. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the comfortable position of the workshop bench seat, put down the hobby knife, and grab the beverage of your choice, and let's get started with another Train Tuesday. So we're talking about 53-foot containers. Now, these containers that we're going to be talking about tonight, they can be seen in all parts of the United States, Canada, and even Mexico. These are becoming ever more popular in the scene, and they've been that way since about the 1980s. In the 1990s, we really started to see containers come about. And we've seen some 48-foot containers. We've seen some 20-foot containers. Now we've got some 73-foot Stoughton containers. And that's what we're going to be talking about here tonight. Now, the picture that I'm sharing with you, that is from a previous release back in 2019. This was the BNSF version that we did. Now, we won't be doing the BNSF version this run, but I wanted to show a picture so you had an idea of what these look like. And let's go ahead and take an opportunity and zoom in so you can see all the detail that we put into these models. Now, one thing that you may not know is all of that artwork. Not only is it there to be accurate, but it's something that can be overlooked pretty easily. All of the reporting marks, the high vis markings, even just the logos, things of that nature. All of that's applied. And if you look carefully at these rods, those are separate. Those aren't molded into the plastic piece. That's actually separate pieces. So you get a really nice container. At first glance, you might think, yeah, it's just a box, right? No, not really. So this is what we're going to be talking about tonight. And first up is the Swift Intermodal. Now, before I go on, we're offering these in 2 different packs. So you can get 2 packs of the Swift. They come 3 containers per package. And that way you all have unique road numbers. So if you buy both packs of the Swift, you get 6 containers, all with individual numbers separate from any other. So the interesting thing about Swift Transportation, it's a Phoenix, Arizona-based American truckload motor shipping carrier, and they're part of Knight Swift. They have about 23,000 trucks, and it is the largest common carrier in the United States. Now, back in 2017, Swift merged with Knight Transportation, also of Phoenix, and that was back in officially September 8th of 2017. So these can be seen throughout the United States and Canada. Now, one thing I do want to mention is while we're talking about these containers and I'm going back and forth amongst the screens, I won't always see your comments. So if you have some comments or questions, let's save those for the end of the show. That way I can see them and I can answer your questions. Now, everything that I'm showing you tonight is available for pre-order. You have until this Friday, the 25th. After Friday the 25th, all the orders close, and you'll need to get your pre-orders in before then. Now, the ETA on these is going to be April of 2023. Coming up next is Hub Group. Hub Group was founded in 1971 by Philip Yeager. The company went public in 1996 and is traded on the NASDAQ exchange. Now, his son, David Yeager, serves as a Hub Group chairman and chief executive officer. Now, this is kind of local for us. This Hub Group is actually located in Oak Brook, Illinois, so just up the road from where the Athearn World Headquarters is located. And of course, these are all great for your modern day container stack trains. So here's a trivia question, and I'll look at the comments, but can somebody tell me who the two largest owners / partners of EMP is? It's a railroad company. Can somebody tell me? I'm going to look at the comments here. We're talking EMP. There are two railroads that are owner partners. So let's see if somebody gets that. Looking in there. I'll give you a hint. One's from the west end of the country. One's from the east side. Two major railroads. Owners and partners of EMP. Brad's got it half right. So who can get the other half? We get some ones that are close. It looks like Dennis was the first. UP and NS, that is correct, Dennis. They are basically they're the largest owners and partners of EMP, and they're a domestic freight interline system, international freight transport service that rents and moves more than, get this, 35,000 53-foot containers and chassis throughout North America. So chances are you've seen these. If you've gone rail fanning lately, you've probably seen these. Pretty impressive. Well, something too I want to talk about briefly while we're going through these is some of the details that we've done in this. These are all fully assembled. You don't have to worry about fine-tuning them or anything of that nature. You might want to weather them, but that's about it. They're easily stackable. They not only do they stack very well, but they stay stacked. You don't have, even if you've got some, you might want to be careful on some of the less than ideal track work. If you're trying to model maybe Guilford or late Rock Island trackage, you might want to be a little careful on the rocking part. But for the most part, these guys stay together really well. They have separately applied door closure rods. Remember, I showed you that in the first picture. In fact, I think I've got another picture of the last time we ran the EMPs. Yeah, here we go. Let's zoom in on these. These are separately applied, like I was saying. Not molded on. Which really makes the authenticity look that much better. And of course, each container is individually numbered, so you don't have to worry about repeats. And again, the razor sharp painting and printing, for which we're known for, it's all there. So this release here, this is the EMP. This release was back in 2015, April 2015 announcement. We're rerunning the EMPs again because they were popular. It's been a bit. They will be different numbers than they were before. So if you happen to get these in the first run back in 2015, you'll be happy to know that you can add to your collection and get 2 more packs of individually numbered containers. So everybody's heard of Schneider International. I know everybody's seen these going down the highways. If you've gone rail fanning, you've seen these as well. You might have seen them in transfer yards, but these are all over the place. They were founded in 1935, believe it or not. Al Snyder traded in his family car to buy his first truck to start Schneider. They're headquartered up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and they have quickly grown to be one of the biggest, not only just truck, but rail traffic as well with these containers. And Schneider Intermodal, they have a whole fleet of 53-foot containers such as these. And the last one that we're going to talk about is the Optimodal. And I had to do a little digging on this one. I wasn't as familiar with Optimodal at first. Digging in, they're actually a subsidiary of Odyssey Logistics and Technology Corporation. And what they're known for is their containerized tank cars. If you've ever gone rail fanning and seen a tank structure that's got a square containerized structure built around it, chances are it's these guys. But they do also have some 53-foot intermodal containers. But they're really known for those tank containers, which are really interesting pieces of equipment. They are actually the leading provider of domestic tank container on flat car in the United States, probably the North America. And this is one I don't believe we have done before. I couldn't find it in our archives. If we did, it was a long time ago, but this is a relatively new one for us. Yes, Harold, we actually have the benefit that some of our developers and artists on the West Coast, they're by a lot of these ports. So they get to see these all the time. Janik has gotten some really good pictures of these. Some of our artists have gotten some really good pictures of these. So we have literally sometimes able to look right out our windows and see these. And it really helps pay off in making these. So we definitely want to get you something that's accurate. And for modern day modelers, this is what you're going to want. So let's see, before we go on, let's see if there's any questions out there about the 53-foot containers. I see some comments about maybe doing some 20-foots. We've done some 20s just recently. 40-foot tank container would be super cool. Yeah, it would. It would be. And you know what? I'm seeing some folks out there asking if we could do some of those. Well, this is a good point to remind everybody. If you've got something you'd like to see produced in the future, you can go to our website, go to the Contact Us page, and select the Athearn product suggestion email and put that in there. Now, remember, when you send an email to our product suggestion, you might not get a response. In fact, most of the time you won't. So don't feel that we're slighting you. We get a lot of emails on a daily basis, but those emails go directly to our developers. And if we get enough requests for something, we'll end up producing it, as you've seen we've done here recently. Let's see. Those green EMP containers with the silver banded sides are sweet. I'm gonna need some of those. Yeah, they're pretty cool. You know, a lot of folks that aren't into modern railroading, they lament that modern day railroading is, you know, a series of grays and browns and tans and just not a lot of color. But if you think about it, look at our container system, and there's all kinds of really cool colors, and the EMP is a great example of that. So much like the older generations enjoyed the colorful reefers and the colorful boxcars, you know, folks that enjoy the modern, especially the containerized freight, we've got a whole rainbow of colors of containers, and definitely keeps rail fanning very interesting. Yes, Sid, we are coming up at the end of the month, which means we will have a new announcements video. Now, I want everybody, while we're talking about that, to pay attention. We are not going to do it at our usual time. You're going to want to pay attention to Facebook and other social media, because we're going to be making an announcement that day, and we're going to be picking it at a different time than what we normally do. So stay tuned to all your social media contacts for that announcement of when the Friday show is going to take place. But it's a special live announcement that we're looking forward to bringing to you all, and you're going to want to stay tuned for details on that. So Ron wants to know what the MSRP is on these. These are a 3-pack. They are $44.99. Now, again, talk to your dealer. Depending on your dealer, your price may vary, but an MSRP on these is $44.95 for a 3-pack. All right. Looking at Eric's got a question. He's wanting to know any Canadian National 50 stuff. Not today. Not today. All right. Derek wants to know, it'd be nice if Athearn would offer some new chassis along with containers. I'm pretty sure the guys are working on that. We'll have to stay tuned to see. But we're selling more and more containers each year, and we're seeing a definite rise in folks that like to model modern era. When I say modern era, probably 2000s and beyond, which means a lot of stack trains. That's why we're offering more locomotives that are appropriate for that time period, as well as containers and flat cars, well cars, things of that nature. All right, well, it's time to transition. I've got some neat stuff to talk with you folks about. Now, occasionally I'll go out on social media and I'll look and see what everybody's working on, because we are just opening up into the train show season here, and but it's still neat to see what you guys are working on. And for most parts of the northern part of the hemisphere, it's still kind of winter. So some of you guys are still working on some projects, and I think I've got some projects to share here. Let me see. We do. So Rob Arsenal. Now, as you know, he does, if you look at his Facebook page, it's Weather My Trains, and he does an incredible job doing weathering. Now here he's got a Western Pacific that he painted up for a customer. Let's see, he's created another masterpiece, which yes, he has, with this Genesis Western Pacific GP7. This old EMD has seen many years of service, but continued to serve its owner proudly. Let's zoom in on this a little bit and show everybody Rob's efforts. So this is really well done. Striking paint scheme anyways, simple but striking. But look at how subtle the weathering is on this. It is a look of a well-maintained locomotive, but it's a locomotive that has definitely seen some service. Nice job. So Rob, thanks for letting us share that. You might have seen this on our Facebook and Instagram feed last week. It was one of my favorite picks this past week that I wanted to share with you. Now, as many of you guys know, I am a historical society member of the Boston and Maine and Maine Central group, as well as part of the Boston and Maine modelers group on Facebook. And of course, right now, Boston and Maine modelers have a lot to be happy about, because two major manufacturers have released locomotives that are right in their wheelhouse. Now, of course, Athearn came out with their GP9s, and we did the Alan Dustin era, the 1970s GP9s, and we got some really cool feedback and some really cool pictures shared on Facebook. First one I want to show you is Jack Hughes. He got 1717, and reading from his notes of what he had to say here, Jack Hughes detailed his GP9 by painting the window frames, adding A-line wipers, a scale sound speaker, Loke sound, LEDs, white stanchions in the frame stripe, and a drain pipe. Now, do you know what he's talking about? Let's just take a look at the locomotive itself as it is, and I think he did a wonderful job on the weathering. I'm almost ashamed to admit my age here, but I remember when these GP9s looked like this. By the time I was rail fanning these, they were pretty dirty, not quite as pretty as they were when they had the original McGinnis paint scheme. But I think he captured the look really well. And the Boston to Maine was definitely a Yankee railroad. They made do with what they had, and they kept their locomotives running for as long as they could. Now, that drain pipe that he's talking about is a detail that he added. And here's a close-up of it right here. Now, I want to go back to the audience here and see if anybody out there knows what that drain pipe is. I do, because we had our group expert answer that for us. But I want to see if anybody out there in the virtual train world knows what that is. So I'm looking in the comments here. And I'll give it a little bit. And I'll zoom in on this while I'm waiting for comments, but we're talking about this detail right here. What's this drain pipe for? Anybody? I'm trying to see who's got the first correct answer. I'm going to go with Andrew. Yeah. So according to Richard Reed, who's also a member of the Boston and Maine Modelers Group, was a former employee of the Boston and Maine, and I believe, if my conversation memory serves me correctly, operated the GP9s when he was an employee of Boston and Maine. And his quote from the group was, "That, my friend, is the chute for the dry hopper. In the days before retention toilets, that is where it went. Some of the GP9s still had them all the way up until retirement. The crew would call it natural fertilizer." So there you go. There's a detail that Jack successfully installed, and it's one of those small things that you can add to your models. And Jack is obviously modeling a specific time, and as Richard said, a lot of those stayed in place right up until the GP9s were retired, which, considering Guilford hung on to them for a little bit, that's quite a while. So it's a detail that's not usually modeled. And speaking of Richard Reed, he picked up 1705. And Richard, if you're watching, forgive me if I didn't get the conversation completely right. It's been a little bit, but I believe you said you had actually operated 1705. But basically what Richard was writing, and he says, Athearn gives you a nice interior, but it's technically for a GP7 or an early GP9. I cut down an AAR control stand to more closely resemble the stand used in Boston and Maine's GP9s, added a piece of styrene for the radio, and added an extra seat on the fireman's side. And he's eventually going to put a crew in there. But look at the detail that he was able to add, just a little bit of painting, a little bit of work. And he's definitely inspiring me to do the same with my two Boston and Maine units. He didn't stop there, though. He did some further research, did some further details. Now, anybody that got 1705 direct from Athearn, a couple of things. We apologize, but there was a few that went out without winterization hatches. If you contact our customer service, we'll be more than happy to send you the winterization hatches. And Richard, as well as some other members of the group, they got their hatches about a week or so ago. And Richard was able to match his with some AccuPaint. If you grew up on the Northeast, you know what AccuPaint is. If you don't have access to AccuPaint, the original Polyscale Boston and Maine Blue is a close match to the Athearn Boston and Maine Blue. But he also noticed that not only did the Boston and Maine blank out their dynamic brakes on 1705, but depending on what era, what age, the blanking plate was different. Now, we delivered ours with a square plate. Richard wanted to closely resemble 1705 as he remembered it. And for his era, it had a more circular plate. And you can see he's successfully added that and painted it and blended it in with the piece. You know, it's common practice for the Boston and Maine on their GP9s to disable the dynamic braking. In some cases, the radiator fins were fully encapsulated, like you see here. Sometimes they weren't, and they were plated over. The fan was removed, and the that hole that was left by the removed fan, that was plated over. And according to some guys that I've talked to, it was whatever scrap they had in the yard, they cover that up. They basically just wanted to keep the environment out of the inside of the locomotive. Richard did a great job here simulating that job. Now, something else Richard realized too is for his era, 1705 didn't have the strobes. Now, when we offered 1705, we did it up in its brief stance as a commuter rail locomotive. It would often help the MBTA by pulling a couple of RDCs around the area. And so the strobe lights were common for that, but for Richard Reed's era, they did not have the strobes. So here you can see he's taken those details off, and he's filling in the holes where the strobes were, doing a lot of great work there. And there it is just before weathering. And here it is. He did a nice light dusting of weathering. Really did a nice job on that. So it just shows you, even with the Genesis model, you can take it even further. And it's also a great illustration to show that locomotives, details can change sometimes within a year or a month. So if you're really wanting to get detail and prototype specific, you've got to really do your due diligence and look for those locomotives. And like I said, Boston and Maine was one of those railroads that if something needed to be repaired or fixed, they just do it on the spot in the shop. They made do with what they had. So great job, Richard and Jack. Thanks for letting me share those tonight. It's always fun to see the stuff that we work on out there, in the real world on your layouts. Rich Barnett, I know Rich, or I know the name anyways, from the modelers group. He said the strobes lasted, looks like he's saying 3 months, which, yep, I don't doubt it. So when you're doing your own custom painting and your own detailing, that's why dates matter, because especially on railroads like this one. All right, so that's all I've got to share with you tonight. I know it's a relatively short show, but I wanted to show those to you, and I wanted to talk about the containers. Also, here in a minute, I'm going to talk about some things that are going to be hitting the store shelves here real quickly. I also want to let everybody know that, again, Friday, March 25th, we're going to have a special live feed. It's going to be a little bit different than what you're probably used to. There's going to be some changes. And we're really excited about those changes, and hopefully you're going to enjoy those changes as well. And of course, we're going to talk about new models. But until then, you have until Friday, March 25th to place your last pre-orders, whether it be these containers. Don't forget about those AC 4400s. A lot of people are really excited about those, and as well you should be. It's the only one that it's our biggest project really of the year, and the only one available to that detail level in plastic. Also, don't forget we've got the RS3s, and for the first time, those RS3s are coming with sound and a new upgraded motor, so that'll be a nice improvement on those. And of course, all of the other things that we've talked about the last few weeks. Now, if you've missed any of the previous Train Tuesdays, you can go over to our YouTube channel And while you're there, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. That way you know every time a new video comes in, you can sit down at your workbench and watch it. But you can watch previous Train Tuesdays there, as well as some of the live feeds that we've done in the past. All right. So what do I have that is going to be in the warehouse and in the dealer shelves real quick? Let's take a look. All right. So the first thing we've got, that bright yellow family line system, that is part of the Roundhouse. That's the Roundhouse ACF 5250 center flow hoppers. And if you're into covered hoppers, this is going to be a good next few weeks for you. If you pre-ordered these will be in probably in the next few days. Now the Roundhouse, they don't have the detail, let's say, as a Genesis or Ready to Roll, but these are perfect for entry-level modelers, especially younger modelers, because take a look at the details. They've got details, but maybe slightly exaggerated. That's so that smaller hands can grab these and not have to worry about them getting broken. They're not quite as delicate as their Ready to Roll Genesis brothers. But this whole line of the Seaboard Coastline, as well as others joining it in the group of the ACF 5250 center flow hoppers, these will be in your hobby shop probably within this week. So if you pre-ordered, you should be getting a phone call soon. If not, stop by your local hobby shop, see if they have these in stock, and pick one or two up. Now, right below it, we got its N-scale cousin. And this is the Pullman Standard 4427 3-bay hopper. This particular one here is for Rock Island. Now, I've always been really excited about these because if you take a look here for N-scale, you've got really nice detail. If you look at the roof walk, that is metal etched. It's not plastic. It's all metal etched. You've got your nice detailing on your ends. You've got some basic brake details. But if you're an operator in N-scale, you're really going to be happy because these come with metal wheel sets and body-mounted couplers. In the past, we've offered these in the past. They had the old Talgo trucks, meaning that the coupler was attached to the truck. But the last few runs that we've done, we've updated those, and now they have body-mounted couplers. And I can tell you for a fact, from experience, they're an absolute dream to use on a switching layout. So the Rock Island, as you can see here, this is going to be available in the next coming week. So if you pre-ordered the N-scale ones, you should be getting a phone call. If not, contact your dealer and see. And I mean, just a nice set. Like I said, if you're into covered hoppers right now, you are in luck. So there you are. I had to share those because I always get excited when we get new products in that we've announced the year before. They're coming in. It's like Christmas all over again. So let's see what we've got for comments out there. If you've got some questions, now's a good time to ask those questions. Ask away. I'll go back a little bit. Randall is really excited about that Seaboard Coastline car, that Family Lines car, yeah. Terry, not that particular car, not this time, just on scale. Randall says, I bought all three of the Rio Grande versions from a previous run of those HO hoppers from several years ago. They still look great. They're in several of my videos from the club layout. Good to hear, Randall. How many road numbers for the rock hoppers? I believe we did three. Three numbers for those. Robin wants to know when the Santa Fe 5704 is coming in. You're probably talking about the bicentennial unit that was recently restored by BNSF. So our model, we announced it a couple of months ago. It will be here next year at this time. So if you placed a pre-order for that, you should see that next spring. Dustin wants to know when the bathtub gons will be showing up. I believe those will be showing up here in the next week or so as well. Any new prime for grime? Well, other than what we've talked about this past month, next month we'll have some prime for grime for you. So stay tuned. Andrew's got a good question. He wants to know, Jim, any plans for Wisconsin Central GP35 and the 2550 series and the GP35M rebuilds and the 2050 series with ditch lights? I can tell you immediate future, probably not. I can tell you the guys have a lot on their plate. Some of the things we've talked about, some of the things we haven't talked about yet. So I can't say that it's impossible that it would never happen, but I can tell you that right now, probably nothing in the near future. Ian, I'm seeing your question there about the GP9s making it to Canada. We've got some reports that some Canadian dealers have gotten those. So I'm not sure if they're held up in customs or what the issue may be. But we have some Canadian dealers that have gotten those already. So I'm not sure if maybe your dealer has more info on that. But everything from the Athearn distribution center has shipped out. Ron wants to know, I have a standard DC Athearn Genesis DD40AX. How complicated is it to convert it to a sound-equipped DCC model? Well, there's a couple of things. If it was one from this previous release that just came into stock this past month, it's a little bit easier. If it's an older model from a previous release, it may have some difficulties. Now, with any project like that, and it's the scope of which would be too much for this video, but it's a couple of things you can do. If you go over to our partners over at Soundtracks, George has got a series of videos on everything from installations to programming the Soundtracks Tsunami decoders. That's a great starting point, as well as looking at other videos out there. There's some great how-to videos about adding DCC and sound to your favorite Genesis model, and that includes both the Tsunami as well as the Loke sound. So do a quick search on your YouTube. If all else fails, try to contact somebody in your area. Usually there's a dealer in your area that specializes in DCC installs. And also check with your club members. If you're a member of a club, check in there. There's always one guy that's a guru of DCC installations. And between those different options, yes, you can put DCC and sound in those. It's achievable. Are you going to offer anything new in undecorated versions? Well, it's a good question. We offered the switchers this past December. We offered those in undecorated. We did fairly well with those. Will we do that again in the future? It's a possibility. If we get enough demand for you guys that want to do undecorated models, we'll definitely do it. Now, keep in mind in the Genesis series, it's a little bit harder because Genesis are not only are they road name specific, but they are road number specific. So doing an undecorated Genesis model I'm not going to say it's impossible that we'll ever do that again, but the chances are pretty unlikely. However, in our ready to roll line, that's a little bit more doable since those are just road name specific. So it's possible, but it all depends on demand. J. Olo, when will the Gunderson High Cubes get here? The ones announced in October. I've never pre-ordered before, so I don't know how long the wait is expected to be. Well, that's a good question. If you've never done that before, it's pretty simple, really. Let's take into account the containers that we talked about tonight. Now, we are announcing them in the month of March. It typically takes about a month to close out all those orders and to get that order into our factory. And it takes about a year for the production of those models, the printing of those models, and then the shipping of those models. So everything that we talked about tonight will be available next April of 2023. Now, your containers that you saw in October, if we announce them in October, that means this coming November, you'll probably have those containers. So it's about a year and 1 month from the time we announce them. Let's see. I'd like a Prime for Grime SPGP9 and Kodachrome. That could be cool. I would just like a GP9 and Kodachrome. I think that would be really cool. Didn't the Southern Pacific rebuild some of those Jeeps in the 70s, and some of those got Kodachrome? So that could be a possible, maybe a Genesis release. I think I'd have to buy one of those if we ever did those. Of course, then again, if we ever did Milwaukee Jeep 9s, I guess I'd have to buy one of those too. So let me know in the comments what you think about a GP9 in Kodachrome and maybe a GP9 in Milwaukee Road. Pretty good candidates. Dustin's looking for another run of SD50s. Okay, we'll see about that. Terry is asking for Kansas City Southern. What else do we have here? Hustler soon, maybe. Genesis Hustler. Tsunami Sound. Andre, that's a good suggestion. You'd like to see a Prime for Grime X Santa Fe BNSF Jeep 60. I've got plenty of pictures of those from rail fanning the Transcon for the last 20 years. That would be fun. Eric wants to know, any chance of redoing the Norfolk and Western 1776? We did one a long time ago. That would be a good question for development because I don't know if we've got all of the molds necessary to do that specific unit. I don't remember all the particulars of that unit, but there were some interesting things that were specific to the Norfolk and Western unit. And it wasn't just the high hood. There were some other things too. So might have to look into that. Justin's got a question about tractors, wanting to know if we'll do more diecast tractors or farm equipment, specifically John Deere, International, New Holland. So, yes, in the past we did some stuff with, I believe, International Harvester. We did some stuff, did some John Deere. One of the things that it's kind of a double-edged sword for the modeling community is licensing. Licensing works well for the company that you're representing, and the fact that you get a accurate model. However, sometimes licensing involves lots of contracts and sometimes lots of commitments financially. And sometimes when we do the math, depending on the license agreement, we have to pass that price on to you. And if it's something that we don't think is feasible, if we think that price is too high, we might not do that. That doesn't mean we'll never do those brands again. We'll always revisit them in the future because things change. And it's possible in the future we might be able to offer those brands again. Same goes, we get a lot of questions about Mack trucks. We've looked into the licensing on that. It's something that we'd still like to consider. And we're not just looking at Mack either. We're looking at other brands. So that way you've got a nice variety of vehicles on your layout. Ron, good to hear you got the latest release of the DD40AX. Those sold out quickly, so good luck with that. I think you'll find that putting DCC and sound in that, it's doable. It's not hard. It's definitely something that can be done. But if you've never done it before, I highly suggest contacting some folks in your area that are well adept at DCC and sound installs. Brad heard us talking about Jeep 9, so he's going to put in CN and CP chop noses. I know. I keep bugging the guys. Trust me. I'm right there with you. Late Night's got a good question. He's like, will Athearn ever consider releasing more than 3 to 8 road numbers at a time for freight cars and ready to roll? That's a good question. We've done that in the past where we've offered more. And unfortunately, that hasn't always worked out. We've seen in the past where we've offered more road numbers, and those road numbers that tend to be on the end of the list tend to stick around a little while longer. We may think about doing specific small unit trains in the future, but for right now, we're comfortable, and most of you guys out there are comfortable with the amount of road numbers we release per release. But that's a good question. Now, let me see. I want to check into something while I'm looking at some of these questions running through. So I'm seeing some questions regarding the SD70s, the SD70M-2s. These are ones that we talked about last, I believe, January. So far, they're on track for May. They should be here around May. Now, again, that's still kind of far out, so that is subject to change. But for right now, the ETA is roughly May. Randall wants to know, any chance we'll see more BNSF SD70 Max in the future? I think so. I think we'll see more of those. That was a strong seller, and BNSF and whatever we do is a strong seller. So I think you'll be all set. I think you'll be fine. Any hints for Friday's announcement? Yeah, that's got to be something I can throw out there for you to get you thinking. We only got a few more days. A hint, okay. I'll give you a musical hint. Paul Simon, 1973. you're a music aficionado, you'll get it. Trust me, that's relevant for Friday. Highball Production says, any chance for CSX AC 4400 number 69? I mean, you're already doing 420. Well, you heard John. If you watched the live feed, he's got the next 10 releases all planned out. I don't know if that road number is on there, but possibility. Arlo Guthrie, next month? Nope. Not next month. Harold, you're close, but that's Simon Garfunkel. I'm just talking Paul Simon. And remember, 73 was an album. Specific song from that album. A lot of guys asking for some U-boats. You guys are keeping development busy. All right, I got time for, let's say, one or two more questions, and then we will conclude Train Tuesday. Let you guys get back to working on the layout, working at the workbench on what you're working on. Hey, don't be afraid either to post on our Facebook page what you're working on. Janik and I both watch the Instagram and Facebook feeds, and that's where we grab some of these. Those pictures that we shared tonight came from Janik and I finding them and reaching out to you guys, and I want to thank you all for letting us share those with the modeling community. Here's a good question coming from Ron again. Ron's got lots of good questions tonight. Will Athearn make an SD40-2 in the Genesis line? That's a good question. Now, the SD40-2 that we have currently, it's in our ready to roll line. Admittedly, it's an older model. It's been around for a little bit. Could it be upgraded to Genesis? That could be subject for debate. And if you watch the live feed that we did for the AC 4400, John goes into detail of why the Genesis locomotives are so much different than everything else. I believe he said there was up to 30 different cabs for the AC 4400s. I mean, there's a large amount of cabs just for one release. If you haven't seen that, go to our YouTube channel. It's featured. It's our featured video this month on the live feed of the AC 4400. And those kind of details is what makes a Genesis model a Genesis premium model. They're going to have prototype specific details. So bringing the SD40-2 into Genesis, not impossible, but there might be a lot of tooling that needs to be done to bring it up to Genesis standards. One more question. A lot of you guys are getting the hint. Back a little bit. Yeah, a lot of you guys got the hint. So if you got the hint and you like that, I think you're going to be happy with Friday. Randall, we probably won't do any legendary liveries in the AC 4400s. Probably not. Not right away anyways. There's too many prototypes that we can do first. Wolfgang says, I went to the product suggestion and requested Norfolk Southern's GP38-3, which was in fact rebuilt from a GP50. That's a good idea. That's a great use of that email because that's the kind of stuff that we're looking for. So if you have an idea like Wolfgang's, definitely use that email. Steve, we're going to end with your question. You've got a really good question regarding Genesis. Will you add the ground lights and such to standard Genesis lines? So John has told me what the product development crew at Athearn are committed to do is start adding some of those details on some of the older Genesis locomotives. So currently Genesis, say Jeep 7s, Jeep 9s, they don't have separately lit number boards like a Genesis 2.0-9 or an SD70 ACU would have. They are looking into upgrading those as time goes on. It's not going to happen overnight because there's a lot of models that are going to be upgraded, but they will definitely stay on the Genesis line and they will slowly be upgraded to Genesis 2.0 standards. So whether it be actual detail parts or lighting features, those things will happen. It will be an evolutionary process. So Steve, we're going to end with that. That was a great question to end the night. I want to thank you all for coming on board and joining me tonight for Train Tuesday. It's always a great time talking trains, talking to you guys, seeing what you guys are up to. And I want to thank folks that allowed us to share their pictures tonight on Train Tuesday. If you're interested in any of those Facebook pages, there's Weather My Trains by Rob Arsenal. You can check out his Facebook page. And if you would like to have one of your locomotives weathered by his expertise, be sure to contact him. And likewise, if you like the looks of the Boston and Maine models that I showed you tonight, check out on Facebook the Boston and Maine Modelers Group. It's a great group of guys. There's a lot of talent in there. And if you're interested in the Northeast railroading, it's definitely something you're going to want to join and get inspired. So with that, I want to wish everybody a great evening. Be happy, be healthy, be safe, do some good modeling, and above all, high greens, everybody. Good night, and I'll see you on Friday.